Welcome back to Ari Squared. We are your hosts, Ari Lev and Ari Berkowitz, coming to you on Wednesday. We are so excited to be recording another episode for you. We've got another awesome, fun, and hopefully intriguing episode for you guys with some of your favorite segments. We've been loving the feedback that we've been getting from you guys. And so, guys, please go ahead and follow us on social media. Go give us a subscribe on YouTube. You can find us on RE Squared on YouTube, on Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it, we're there. Please leave us a 5-star review. Leave us comments. And, guys, keep your feedback coming. We love it. Now, I know this is a football podcast, but given the fact that we do have the NBA Finals going on, and you are a huge Knicks fan, let's give you your first 30 seconds to give us your thoughts on Game 3 that the Spurs ultimately won. And do you think that the officiating was fair, or should Wemby have received a technical for literally shoving Brunson to the floor? So, Ari, 30-second NBA rant, go.
So I just want to say that it's a very exciting time for sports in general, that it's the finals and Stanley Cup, and it's about to be the World Cup. It's nuts time for sports. Obviously, baseball is happening as well. That's why we decided to talk about football. With regard to the Knicks, okay, I mean, Game 3 is one of the most important games, in my opinion. It was way closer than what people want to make it out to be, and a few things going in each way would have changed that, as opposed to the way the Knicks played in San Antonio, which I think was pretty convincing. We shall see. It's going to be a fun series regardless, and we'll see if Wembanyama has it in him. The Knicks have some serious blockades that they've put in front of him. The Spurs decided to pivot, and I think every single one of their guards had at least 5 rebounds because of how they were using Wembanyama outside of the paint. We'll see how long that can keep going. That's with regards to that. With regards to the flagrant possibility, I can't tell you. I'm a Knicks fan. You know what I'm gonna say about it. I can't be objective about it. To me, it's clear, but I'm not an official, and I'm a huge Knicks fan. So that's what I'm gonna leave it with. Ari, if you have anything else to add, be my guest.
Well, I'm just gonna say, as a non-Knicks fan, I think that was bullshit, and that was Wemby should have gotten like a technical for that. I get how
it's not a technical; it would have been a flagrant.
Sorry.
And because it was a multiple flagrant in the playoffs, he would have been suspended for a game.
So I think he should have gotten it. I don't like the thought of him having to miss a game, because that doesn't benefit anyone when all is said and done. But you can't be acting that way. I get why he's, kind of, making his physical presence, noticed. But with that being said, I think that was bullshit. And after review, the refs agreed that he should have gotten something there. But let's change gears and let's switch back to our favorite topic, which is the NFL. So
sounds good, Ari.
But I will say this: Knicks in 6.
Or should I do? Yeah. So basically, we wanted to get started today with our tackles ratings, and basically, after a lot of discussions over the course of the week, in which we've had 2 separate lists for our rankings up until this point, we decided to pivot because there's just a lot of consensus with regard to, I'd say, the top 6 or maybe even 7 tackles. Please don't meme me for saying that, but there really is a lot of consensus, and there wouldn't have been so much difference. And so in order to make this a little bit more structured and more engaging, we just decided to do a consensus list. With that being said, number 10 on our list is Brian O'Neill, the right tackle for the Vikings, who we're going to do a little bit more of an in-depth view of in a bit. And he slots in at number 10. Ari, do you have anything to add on Brian O'Neill?
No, not specifically on him. I do want to say, though, in overall for our listeners about these lists, you guys have seen, we're going to continue doing these top 10 lists like we've already done with QBs, like we've done with defensive ends, like we're doing today with the O-line. And you guys tell us what you prefer. Do you prefer that we each have separate lists that we don't each know about? Or what are your thoughts on the consensus list? Just specifically about, Brian from the Vikings. When all said and done, they have and usually have a very strong O-line. And we know that the place where that all starts is at the tackle position. And I feel that if we really look at his overall body of play, I would rank him number 10 above the other people that I would say are ranked 11 to 15. There wasn't really somebody kind of else vying for his number 10 spot. And that's why he's consensusly at number 10.
Consensusly, I don't believe is a word.
Well, it is now.
It is now. And yeah, so I mean, I think Brian O'Neill is just, he's like one of these classic lunch pail guys in the NFL that he just never gets enough recognition. And he's been a top 10 or borderline top 10 tackle in the NFL for years. His technique, especially in pass protection, is phenomenal. And I just really wanted to make sure that he was highlighted, and that's why we included him at top 10. Moving on to number 9, we have Abraham Lucas, another right tackle for the Seattle Seahawks coming in. Abraham Lucas was not as high profile as who the Seahawks drafted that year in the first round, Charles Cross, but for all intents and purposes has played better than Charles Cross. And does things that really make me excited, not only about where he is now, but also about his growth. Ari, what do you think about Abraham Lucas as our number 9 guy?
So I like him there, and I agree, especially, Charles Cross, first round, Abraham Lucas, I believe, is the 4th round, right? 3rd round?
I think he was early 3rd or late 2nd. I can't remember, but he was in like that 100th pick range.
And the fact that he was able to, and remember, there was a lot of tackles that had been selected that year, and he was almost going through, you go through the draft process, he was almost like an afterthought. Nobody was really talking about him. And to be able to come in and play at the level that he's played, and I agree, he is outplaying Charles Cross. And what's important to mention as well, especially since we've started with 2 right tackles, is the fact that, it used to be back in the day, there was so much more importance on having an elite left tackle, but if you had a good, decent right tackle, you can get by. But given the versatility of defenses these days, given the versatility of how, whether it's defensive ends or outside linebackers are mixing it up, coming from different sides, switching up, the importance of having a strong and, elite right tackle is all the more so. And that's why, again, I absolutely agree with, the selection of having him, and Super Bowl winner. Let's not forget that.
Absolutely. And no one was talking about Abraham Lucas before the draft except for me. I loved him. I wanted the Jets to take him that year in the 2nd round. Moving on to number 8, we have our first veteran presence, and that is in the form of Laramie Tunsil. Laramie Tunsil, as we all know, was unceremoniously traded twice. Very strangely, as I think that left tackle, franchise left tackles, are some of the fewest, least moving players in the NFL.
Yep.
And he was traded twice, 2 times for huge packages. He's just been that consistent veteran who's still elite, but he's definitely on the decline.
Yep.
And you can definitely see it in the run game more than in the pass game, where his technique really separates him from anyone else.
My only concern with him, and I think this is why, again, he's lower down on our list, is the fact that, yeah, A, I agree with you, he's on the decline, and B, I feel like his decline is also going to be pretty rapid. I don't think, sometimes you see, okay, they're not at the elite level that they were at their peak, but they're still really, really, really good. I think his decline is going to be, more cliff-like. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think he's had a significant step backwards. And I'm already willing to venture and say that he will probably, after this season, fall out of the consensus top 10 tackles list.
Yeah, that could very well be, especially toward the end of the season. We saw a significant increase in pressures on Tunsil, which is definitely, it could be also a testament of who the Commanders had at quarterback and how that statistic is exactly measured. But for all intents and purposes, Tunsil, who's been a consensus top 5 tackle for the better half of close to a decade, is definitely, on the cusp of exiting stage left, if you will. Yes. Bringing us to someone who's at the exact opposite end of the spectrum, which at number 7 and the final tackle in tier 3 is Bernhard Raimann, who out of the draft was a project, to put it lightly. I watched him, and his body type was there, and obviously the athleticism was off the charts. But his basically every year he's gotten more and more polished, and his footwork, which was once terrible, like literally had me thinking he is a 5th round to 7th round draft pick, is now borderline elite. And he is very young and extremely athletic, and he is a guy that I think can be and may be a top 5 tackle in the NFL for many years to come. What do you think about Bernhard Raimann at number 7?
So I think he's that classic example, and this is what I think people have kind of forgotten. You used to see back in the day, even first-round tackles, when they came into the league, you really didn't know if they were going to be great till year 2, and generally even year 3. Yet somehow that's kind of been forgotten, and there's this expectation that if I pick you as as a tackle in the first round, you're going to come in and be game changing. Now, while we see a lot of examples where that is true, we have to remember that that's not how it's always been. And I think he is a prime example of just give him a minute and he will deliver. And yeah, I agree with you. I think that he's going to boost himself up this list and be in a higher position next year.
And how much of a testament is it to, what people always say about coaching and how well the Colts, especially offensive line, but their entire coaching staff, how well they did with someone like Raimann, who was such a developmental prospect, albeit as a first-round pick, to get him to this pretty much borderline, if not elite status, a couple of years later. It's if you know how to coach the right guys, you win a lot of football games. That's basically the bottom line. Moving on to tier 2, we got your boy Andrew Thomas, who had by all means top 5 tackle season this past year. The way that he played was talking about early first-round picks, and deservedly so. He just, he's a mauler. He can, mirror. He has the hand strength. He has the footwork. There's nothing that he doesn't have. He finally showed everything and stayed healthy the whole year. And what a treat you guys are in for, seeing, Andrew Thomas and now Ricard and Scadaboo and Jackson Dart behind. It's an exciting run game action that you guys got going on. Ari, I know you want to speak more about Andrew Thomas. Please go ahead.
So first of all, I would throw in there not just those guys, but CeCe Malminoa as well. Depending on if he runs left, runs right, is just going to be insane. So watch out. And I am excited for our bully ball. Getting back to Andrew Thomas, the reason why if we focus specifically on his play, he can be in discussion for not only top 5, he could also be in discussion for top 3 left tackles in the NFL. Sadly, though, what has plagued him is the dude cannot stay on the field for all 17 games. I know you said he was healthy for the full year last year, but if memory serves me correctly, he missed, if it was at least 2, if not 3 games. And so we're coming to the point now of where we as Giants fans know that you're going to need to have a swing tackle that's good enough, because most likely he is going to miss 2 to 3 games. We drafted Marcus Bowe last year, who, despite coming from a lower round, absolutely show that he can play and be a good and eventually get to a really good, if not elite, tackle in this league, we know that he can step in there. And the good news is that while Thomas is elite, the drop off to Bo isn't falling off a cliff like we've had in the past. But we need him to stay healthy. If he's healthy and can actually stay healthy the entire year, top 3, no question.
Yeah, absolutely, and I don't think there are many people that would disagree with that. Yeah, you're correct. He missed, I think, a couple games to start the year with a lower leg issue, maybe an ankle, and he just went in and was dominant. And it's a great place to talk about, 2 tackles who would otherwise be on this list, which are Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, both of the Chargers, who, I mean, they're just not healthy. It's affecting either, Rashawn Slater missed the whole year, or Joe Alt, it was clearly affecting him while he was on the field. So as much as we wanted them in this top 10, there are a lot of guys, and this is, again, another reason why Tunsil may not be there next year, is because they're the Joe Alts, the Rashawn Slaters, the Jets 2 tackles, all of this very interesting crop of young tackles up and coming, like you said, that are expected from day one to contribute now in the NFL. And it's a great problem to have for us making these top 10 lists. So with that, we can move on to number 5, where we have Jordan Mailata, the left tackle of the Eagles. He, by all, based off of pressures and penalties, he was not as elite as Andrew Thomas was this year, but the track record speaks for itself. As a now looking like perennial top 5 tackle, I think that he's allowed 1 year where he's top 7 and not top 5 and still managed to stay in the top 5. But I know that it hurt you to have the Eagles left tackle right before the Giants left tackle. And thank you for letting me, have my druthers on this, Ari.
Well, listen, as much as he does play for the wretched Eagles. With that being said, I have a lot of respect for the guy. Firstly, to come over as a converted rugby player, never actually having played football, come in as a 7th rounder, and to be able to play to the elite level of left tackle that he has throughout his career, I got a lot of props for the guy. He also happens to be a true mensch off the field as well. Hell of a singer. I love the fact that he does a lot of work within the community as well. And the dude, by the way, if he wants to post playing in the NFL, if that dude wanted to go into singing for a living, he absolutely could. He and some of the other Eagles linemen do have their Christmas albums, including Jason Kelsey as well, which are fun, and they do it to raise money for charity. So, props to them. To me, what will be interesting to see is how does Jordan Mailata, for the first time, how does he fare without having Stout, who is arguably, or actually since he's out of the NFL this year, was probably top 3, if not number 1 O-line coach in the NFL. It's going to be interesting to see, does his level of play fall off a little bit, or does he find himself in more of a precarious spot because it's no longer Stout coaching the O-line in Philly. So that'll be interesting to see. But by all means, hell of a left tackle, and it didn't hurt me nearly as much to rank him above Andrew Thomas as one may think, despite him being from the Eagles.
Yeah, and that's a concern, frankly, for the entirety of the Eagles' offensive line. They've been drafting specific guys to fit the Jeff Stoutland mold that he then molds into, the Cam Jurgenses and the Landon Dickersons and the Tyler Steens and, all of those guys. We shall see. But we all know that there is a flagrant level of combustibility with the Philadelphia Eagles this year. They removed, like the AJ Brown trade kind of feels like the removal of the Band-Aid on a very large burn. So we'll see how that all plays out. I can see Sirianni making it to the Super Bowl again, and I could also see him getting fired. So it's a pretty wild situation there. So
agreed.
Last player to conclude our tier 2, coming in at number 4 is Trent Williams. I mean, the ageless wonder. He is just so damn good, and he's still so damn good. And it's shocking to watch how the guy at 37 years old is moving like that.
I believe 39 years old.
Really? Okay, so whatever his age is, if it's 39 or if it's 93, it is just such a treat to watch him out and about on the field, looking as spry as ever, and just, playing he's the definition of what you want in every single sense of the word of a tackle, whether it's playing to the whistle, finishing blocks, technique for days, the long arms, the athleticism. It's just unbelievable that he is still at it. And just because of his age and how much longer he's expected to do this, and I know the Niners share the same concerns, that's the only reason why he was the first guy in tier 2 as opposed to the last guy in tier 1. And moving on to tier 1, starting off, we have Garrett Bowles, the left tackle for the Denver Broncos. Ari, I know that you like yourself some Bo Nix and Sean Payton. What jumped out to you about Garrett Bowles and his play style?
I mean, he is just a beast. Like, he's a wall. I don't think you can find any flaws in his game. I think whether it's in pass pro or in run pro, the dude is just so consistent, and he is very much keeping Bo Nix upright. We see, especially in the AFC West, when you don't have your tackles there and what that looks like, no matter how good you are as a QB. And he's a difference maker, and he is definitely a key piece to keeping Bo Nix upright and giving Bo Nix the time and the ability to do what he's been doing as an extension of Sean Payton on the field. So, yeah, the world looks very, very different for Bo Nix and Sean Payton if Garrett Bowles is not on the field.
Yeah, agreed. And it's still so early in his career, and somehow he looks like he's on a Hall of Fame track already.
Oh, yeah, he's ascending for sure.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild how just he reminds me of like a Joe Thomas, Jake Long type tackle. That's just like, just set it and forget it for the next decade on the left side for Denver. And it's phenomenal to see both in the run game and in the pass game. Talking about someone who is absolutely bonkers in the run game and the pass game, that's our number 2 guy in Tristan Wirfs, who suffered some injuries and, overall is getting a little bit, on the older side. But when he plays, and he still plays pretty often, he is just on a different level, just like Garrett Bowles and just like our number 1 guy. He is just a force to reckon with. Ari, what do you make of Tristan Wirfs?
So Tristan Wirfs, I go back to, and he's kind of married in a way to Andrew Thomas, because came out in the same draft, and there was that debate leading up to the draft. How were the chips going to fall? Who was going to be the first tackle off the board? Ultimately, it was Tristan Wirfs at number 4, and then at number 3.
What? No, Andrew Thomas went number 4.
Wait, right. Sorry. Andrew Thomas went first. Correct. And then there was that debate, especially since Tristan Wirfs came in and played really well from the beginning, and Andrew Thomas kind of struggled in his first year. The Giants were taking a lot of heat of, you messed it up. Look at that. You took the wrong one. And ultimately, I mean, he's a hell of a left tackle and plays really, really, really well. I hope for him. I do believe he can continue doing it at a high level. That's why ultimately he did come in as number 2. And I do believe that he'll get over the injuries from last year, go back to his usual self, and continue to show why he was ultimately, even though he wasn't selected first that year amongst the offensive tackles that came out, he'll re-solidify his place back of the top of that draft class for sure.
Yeah, agreed. And that draft class, it's kind of hilarious in the way that it worked out, because after year 1, it was Mekhi Becton, Tristan Wirfs, Jedrick Wills, and then Andrew Thomas. Those were the guys that were all picked between 4 and I think 15 or 16.
Yeah, so they're good.
And 4 years later, and Becton is either out of the league or like trying to compete as a backup. Jedrick Wills.
Well, no, Mekhi Becton was with, if I'm not mistaken, the Eagles.
That was 2 years ago, and last year he was with the Chargers, but they literally called him off the street after their entire offensive line got hurt to come in. I don't think he has a contract for this year, and I'm not sure Jedrick Wills has a contract for this year.
I don't believe he does.
His first year he was great. Second year he was very good, got hurt, and hasn't ever like fully recovered from that. So it's just wild the way that tackles work out. But 5 years later, the Giants definitely did well, and the Buccaneers, who bucked the trend there and went with a right tackle, which was the real reason why Wirfs was not as highly ranked as some of the other guys, because he was a right tackle. And look at how that turned out. Talking about guys that were drafted as right tackles. Okay, Ari, you want to take it here?
I'll take it here. Coming in at number 1, and I mean, he was just such a consensus. If there were people on this list where, we went a little bit of back and forth on, maybe they should have been higher, maybe they should have been lower. When it came to number 1, as we started putting together this list, we both immediately like, who's your number 1? Oh, yeah. Obviously, it's Penei Sewell. I mean, wow. What a tackle. He very likely, so long as his career continues as it has until now, and there's no reason to think that it won't, he ultimately will go down probably as one of the greatest tackles to ever play the game. I mean, he is just so dominant. He is just, from minute 1 that he came into the league. And I remember at the time that the Lions took a little bit of flack for they took him as opposed to
Rashawn Slater.
Sorry?
Rashawn Slater.
Correct. And they were taking a lot of flack for that. Like, oh, wow, what are you doing? How can you take him? He's a right tackle. He's not a left tackle. And he has just proven how right the Lions were and just how much they got that pick absolutely spot on and right. And yeah, he is the consensus number 1, and just well done to him. And he is going to continue keeping, whether it's Jared Goff or whoever they end up selecting to succeed him whenever the time may come, he's going to keep them upright for a very, very, very long time to come. And I just want to say, as kind of a final note on the offensive tackles, linemen in general, I really like that for the first time last year, they finally started getting some recognition. Because if you think about tackles, this is true to O-line in general, but if you think about tackles in the NFL, the best ones, their names are never said because they're not giving up sacks. They're not giving up pressures, and they're just playing really, really well. They're not getting offside penalties, so you never actually hear their name calls. I love the fact that the NFL has gone ahead and created the Protector of the Year award. I love the fact that the people who are on the judges for it are Jason Kelce, arguably the best center to ever play the game, and Joe Thomas. I forget who else is on that list as well of the judges, but every one of them deserves their spot as judges for the Protector of the Year. And I thoroughly enjoy that they are now the people whose names are generally called the least, even when they're playing elite. I love the fact that they finally got some recognition, and well done to them.
Yeah, it's great. And just I just want to add in one differentiator for Penei Sewell, is that I feel like what you're saying is correct about offensive linemen, but then like once in a generation, there's that one offensive lineman that even though they're in the background, you just can't stop seeing him in the plays all the time. And I remember this from Larry Allen on the Cowboys. And I feel like Penei Sewell brings that same kind of oomph where it's just, you just end up seeing him because of his size, because of his dominance. He's just always noticeable, which he's the only offensive lineman, in my opinion, that does that. And the only one in a generation really since Larry Allen, the early 2000s. So unbelievable. And do you have anything else to add on left tackles before we move into a little bit of film?
No. I think that ties up our segment, our top 10 segment about, in this week, it was tackles. So we will be following up with another top 10 list. Guys, let us know who you would like us to do next. We have our order, but we are happy if you guys want to throw some positions in the hat. By all means, toss them our way, and we'll be happy to prioritize them above others. Which moves us on to a little bit of film study, brought to you by Ari Berkowitz.
Yes,
so Ari,
and
take it away.
Yes, and I will, and I just want to go and say that the impetus for this is really based on the fact that I don't think many people really know what makes tackles, what makes them good, and why we have some of these guys on our list in positions that otherwise wouldn't necessarily be there, and just overall something, like you said before, people just don't usually follow what offensive linemen do. And that's the reason why I just wanted to give a little bit insight. This is Brian O'Neill, obviously from a few years ago. He's been, like I said, doing this for years. And this was an easily accessible clip of just Brian O'Neill. So I just wanted to go ahead and play this real quick and point out just a number of things that come to mind with Brian O'Neill. So here we go.
Let's go. That's so Cousins is QB, right?
Cousins is QB, and he's facing off against Hassan Reddick in his prime years. And so just one first thing that I wanted to make note of is look at that. Before Hassan Reddick has even gotten off, all right, O'Neill's already 3 yards back from where he was, and his stance and his shoulder length are equal, and he's completely square to Hassan Reddick. Okay, that's very, very important for positioning in pass pro. All right, now a little bit forward. Now you see Reddick is starting to engage, and Brian O'Neill's deciding here, you know what? I'm just going to let Hassan Reddick make the first move. Like, I'm just playing it casually. I'm going to see where he's going to mess up, and then I am going to make my move off of that. So now you see, now you get the bull rush. Okay, and basically what's happening here is Brian O'Neill is almost textbook, all right? So I say almost textbook because usually you want your elbows a little bit further in, and you want to have a stance that is completely planted, but Hassan Reddick is notorious, or was back then, for his ability to generate unbelievable amount of power from his speed move, and that's basically what's going on here. So I'm going to play a second frame, and now you can see that Brian O'Neill has gotten one elbow in. His base is better, and he's completely minimizing the amount of movement that Hassan Reddick is putting forward. Another screen, and you can say he gave him a half a step. Kirk Cousins like, I'm just, scanning the field. I don't have to worry about Hassan Reddick. I'm good to go. I got Brian O'Neill. Finally, right there, he makes the throw. He's completely thwarted, stopped in his track the entire time, keeping his base wider than his shoulders and keeping Hassan Reddick completely in front of him. That is just a little bit of film to explain what makes you an elite tackle in the NFL.
And yeah, I think the thing that stands out most is you just see how poised and calm Kirk Cousins is. He's not even glancing over in that direction. He's going through his progressions, lining up what's going to be his best throw. It's quite amazing to see.
Yeah, it's something else, and I strongly suggest anyone who hasn't taken the time to just take a peek at what exactly tackles, and for the most part, offensive linemen do over the course of a game, and see some guys are sloppy, some guys get the job done, and then some guys are just downright nasty in the way they go about their business.
All righty. So, Ari, do you want to talk to us about coverages?
Oh, it is that time of the month. So just briefly, this was accidentally skipped in last week's podcast. We just had way too much to cover, no pun intended, with nice. AJ Brown and the Myles Garrett moves. So basically, just briefly, and I just wanted to go over this so we can again, get further in depth and down the line about everything that defenses are doing today in the modern game, which it's really gotten complex to the extent that the best teams in the NFL don't necessarily have the best coverages. The best teams in the NFL have the best people at communicating those coverages to their players. Yep. That is something, for example, that Vic Fangio and Nick Saban have been probably the two best at it in the last decade at least. So last time we broke down covers 1 through 4. Now we're going to talk a little bit about zone versus man and base versus non-base coverages. So basically, to put simple, is on defense, there are 11 guys in coverage, quote unquote, and on offense, there will be a maximum of 10 guys that they have to match up with, because the quarterback obviously is going to be staying behind the line of scrimmage. Obviously, the offensive linemen do as well, and that's where all of the complexities come in. But for the most part, it is 11 on 10 plus the quarterback, and therefore there's always an extra player on defense, and the teams have to decide, what are we going to do with that extra player? Okay, so that is why, for the most part, NFL is a zone game. Even though there are some coaches that are notorious, Bill Belichick is one of them, Rex Ryan was another, Aaron Glenn is another one, that they love their man coverage, they love their big cornerbacks, they love blanket, the Cromarties, the Darrelle Revises, the Ty Laws, and that's basically how they run it. They run man coverage, and then they do a bunch of crazy things in the middle of their defense, starting with their linebackers all the way through to their safeties. Ari, and what do you think about the differences in zone and man coverage, and Bill Belichick's system versus say the Pete Carroll system?
Well, I would say is that nowadays you really got to go with kind of a mix, because yes, obviously you have your base defense, and there are defensive coordinators out there that prefer zone. There are others that prefer man-to-man. But if you look at the modern NFL today, more and more of it is becoming hybrid. More and more of it is disguised coverages. That way, if you look, let's say, like Brian Flores' defense with the Vikings, there's so much. Everybody comes up. There's nobody's really, only very few people have their hand in the dirt. You don't know who's coming. You don't know who's dropping. You don't know who's going, and everything like that. And if you look, a lot of, today you have, yes, classically with cornerbacks, you're going to go with one of two methodologies. Most likely you're either going to be zone or you're going to be press man. But even within that, so many people are, they start out in dime or nickel, but it's so hybrid nowadays that I can't really say that there's a preference towards one or the other. I think that because of how much better the talent is getting across the board, there's a need, and how the game is becoming more offense friendly as time goes on. There's a lot more of a need for the hybrid defense, where you're not stuck on one or the other, but have the ability to adapt. And I think if you're really going to, push me into a corner or pay me into a corner on it, I still do think that the Bill Belichick methodology of where we install our base defense, but we will, from week to week, we will adjust our personnel, and not only adjust our personnel, but adjust the type of coverages we're going to play based on matchup. Now, you need the right players who can adapt like that, who can from week to week change what they're doing. If done correctly, watch out. If not run correctly, you're going to be in for a long season.
That's very well said. And since you mentioned base coverages, I'll just go on the record as saying there are really only 3 kinds of base coverages in the NFL historically. There's the 4-3 defense, which means 4 defensive linemen with their hands in the dirt. That's what it's about. The defensive line with their hands in the dirt, and 3 linebackers. The 3-4 defense, which is three defensive line with their hands in the dirt, and 4 linebackers, usually 2 edges, so it gets a little bit blurred. And then finally, the defense that I'd say has completely fallen out of vogue in the last 15 years. And really in the last 35 years, the only two guys to run it were Rob Ryan and Rex Ryan, as their daddy made it, which is called the 46 defense, which involved a strong safety. That a cool name for it. And he would be basically a fourth linebacker, so it would be a 4-4. But it was the original attempt at the NFL having a guy lining up on the line of scrimmage that did not have his hand in the dirt. I think the guy's name was Plank, but I know he wore the number 46, and that's why the defense is called 46. So those are our base coverages, and basically you can just go ahead and throw all of that out today because no one runs base coverages anymore. And to answer your, to add on to not answer you, but to add on to what you were saying before, Ari, which is the rise in zone coverages, it's just taken over the NFL to such an extent. I wanted to add two other things that I'd like to hear what you think about them some more. Number one is the fact that today there are just a million receivers on the field. And obviously it's it's a different side of the same coin, is that the running game is just not that dominant anymore, and it's all about passing. So what do you think about those two as catalysts, as well as the points that you brought up for much more zone today?
Well, the thing, it's exactly that. Is that, and you know what? It's not just the fact that there's a million wide receivers on the field. It's the fact that you've got, think of how much 12 personnel is being played, where you have two wide receivers and two tight ends. Throw in the fact that you've got, which running back these days can't catch out of the backfield as well. And so now you've got to account for all those, not to mention most QBs nowadays, if not, and soon it will be all the QBs are dual threats to take off and run. So you've got to go ahead and be able to adapt to that, because otherwise you're going to, there's just going to be busted coverages. And so that's why, because of the fact that there's a million possibilities of where QBs can throw the ball today, it's really difficult to actually cover all of them. Because especially if you think about it, okay, so you've got corners on your wide receivers. Great. Who's covering the tight ends? Right? Especially the Travis Kelce type ends of the world, the Isaiah Likely tight ends of the world that are glorified big wide receivers who aren't necessarily even blocking tight ends. And what are you going to do? Put a linebacker on them? Put a safety on them? There's no matchup there. So you've got to find a way to kind of compensate for that, which is just, and again, this comes back to also the fact that the rules of the game are being shaded towards the offense. Like, think about it. Back in the day, if there was a offensive player in the middle of the field, you could legit rip his head off. And it wouldn't be, there'd be no penalty. Nowadays, it's like, you need to lay him down softly on the ground. And if he's not even if he's not fully looking in your direction, there are certain ways you can tackle him. And now I'm all for player safety. I'm all for players not literally dying on the field. But with that being said, to answer your question, that's why you have to shift more. And there's that more leaning towards zone. And again, playing disguise defense as opposed to your classic line them up. My number one corner is going to follow your number one wide receiver around the field. We're heavily shifting away from that just because of, again, sheer talent of just how many of those 11 people can catch the ball. And let's not forget, you've got the Andy Reids of the world who are mixing in big man TDs, where all of a sudden you're taking one of your eligible linemen and they're the ones catching the pass, especially in the red zone. So that's why, in my opinion, we're shifting in that direction.
Well said, Ari. And I think that this is actually a great pivot to our next segment, which we wanted to discuss the NFC West, because specifically the 49ers, and when it comes to defensive shifts in methodology, they're going from Robert Saleh's 4-3, strict cover 4 defense to the Raheem Morris, with a little bit of Mike Zimmer in there and a little bit of what's his name, the when the middle line Tampa 2 defense in there, and running a lot of 3-4, really 3-3-5 sets with the nickel. What do you make of that whole transition? And do you think that there's going to be some kind of lag, or do you think the personnel that the Niners have actually will fit Morris better?
That's a great question. I do anticipate that there's going to be a bit of a drop off there. They also need to see overall, the Niners definitely need to see, like, again, hats off. And we've discussed this in other, episodes as well. Hats off what they were able to do, but despite being decimated, especially on defense, with all the injuries, what they were able to achieve in the playoff run that they were able to do. I do anticipate a bit of a drop off, but then again, the way we saw all the depth really step up last year, when you now get back their perennial, all pro defensive players at certain positions, you get them back. Is that shift really going to make that much of a difference? I don't know. I guess time will tell, but I think that, if there's one team that you can trust on, year in, year out, that is going to field at worst, a very competitive team, which will most likely make the playoffs. Yeah, the Niners are going to field that kind of team season in, season out, so long as you've got Shanahan and John Lynch, which all signs are pointing are going to be for many years to come.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this just dawned on me now. Raheem Morris was the Falcons head coach last season, correct?
He was.
So he hired Jeff Ulbrich to be his defensive coordinator, who was Salah's defensive coordinator with the Jets. I did not realize that overlap until now. That's a very interesting one. But I'll ask you this, interesting notes aside. Now that it seems like the Rams are not only the class in their own in the NFC West, but in the NFC and maybe even in the NFL, do you view the 49ers as the second or the third best team in the division?
I'm still going to slot them in at number 3, behind the Seahawks. Like, there's no question. Yeah, Rams are consensus number 1 in the NFC West, consensus probably in the NFL. They were already favorites to be the Super Bowl winners before the Myles Garrett trade. Since the Myles Garrett trade, they've only become even more favorites. And I am very confident that Aaron Donald is going to come out of retirement. It might not be to start the season, but there's going to be a point in there, if it's not for the beginning of the season, where he's going to be like, hell yeah, I'm in. Let's go on a run. The Super Bowl's in SoFi anyway. And let's just, let's get that jersey back on and off we go. I strongly anticipate that happening. So to answer your questions, as much as the Seahawks did lose a lot, and I do think it's going to be difficult for them to get back to the, to the ball next year, not because of Super Bowl hangover. I believe in McDonald that he's not going to let his team suffer from a Super Bowl hangover, but I just think that they lost too much. And I don't think they're going to be able to unseat the Rams. With that being said, do I think that they're a better team and will finish above the 49ers? Yes, I do believe the Niners will be the number 3 team in the NFC West.
So my question to you about the Rams, if there's one area to kind of like pick at them, it's a receiver a little bit, where they definitely aren't as stacked as some other. I mean, you look at some of their position, their offensive line is nuts. Their defense, like, some of these are just not fair. Like, anyone who doesn't know who Nate Landman is, like, know who that guy is. And so, like, what do you think about, fine, you have Puka Nacua, who has had those, the character issues. We don't yet know if that's going to affect him in any way. And then you have Devontae Adams, who's elderly, in NFL. Do you think that they did enough to address their receiving game for next year? And do you think that could be a mitigating factor to their otherwise, phenomenal outlook for their season?
No, I don't think it's gonna play an effect, and I'll tell you why. Number one, so long as Puka can stop biting people and being anti-Semitic, he'll be fine and on the field and playing to his usual Puka level. Puka also has, like, if there was ever a season for him to get his head in the game or back in the game, it would be this one, because he wants a contract and he needs to go ahead and do that. I do believe that, right? He has not yet signed a big extension. Or am I wrong about that?
I don't follow contracts
I
as well as
don't
I should. I
believe that
do
he
not
has
know.
signed a big contract yet. So he definitely wants to play himself into that. Devontae Adams, as much as he might be getting up there in years, I would not discount his ability to play at a high level. And let's not forget about their run game, okay, which is very important to mention. You've got Stafford coming off of an MVP season, no reason for him not to play to that level again. And let's also not forget, with the defense that they are fielding, they're probably going to be able to win games with field goals. And maybe even just a field goal. So I'm not worried about their wide receiver game. I do believe in McVay and in Snead that if they felt that they needed to shore up the wide receiver core, they would. They always seem to manage, much like they've done with Puka and Cooper Kupp and many others. They pick these later in the draft wide receivers who end up being fantastic. So to answer your question, Ari, no, I'm not worried about their wide receiver core. I'm not worried about any aspect of the game. And again, with a defense like that and a QB like Stafford and the run game they have, good luck.
That's awesome because, their defense doesn't just look like something you make on Madden. If you bring back Aaron Donald, it looks like one of those Madden legacy teams where you could just add, I'm adding Aaron Donald and Myles Garrett and Trent McDuffie this offseason. It's like, how is this even freaking real? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And if CJ Daniels, their 6th-round pick receiver out of Miami, goes off, it's the end of the NFL. Like that's it. Like, I'm sorry. They're going undefeated through the Super Bowl. Like, I have not been as confident in one team's talent level that I am right now at the Rams since the Patriots had Randy Moss, Wes Welker, Tom Brady, and a ridiculous defense. And it's just crazy. It's just wild what's happened with the Rams.
Apropos Madden and the Myles Garrett trade, somebody simulated the trade that actually went through in Madden, and Madden rejected it.
How could you trade Myles Garrett? It just does. There's a certain caliber of player in the NFL that it just never makes sense to trade because you will never get that amount of value in return. And Myles Garrett is 100% that kind of player. So, Ari, with that, unless you have something else to add about the Arizona Cardinals, because I don't really want to.
I think that the Arizona Cardinals, and this is the one thing I would have to say about them, I do believe that they are going to lead the NFC West in one thing. Most likely to fire their first-year head coach after one season.
Nice. It is quite hilarious. Although Jacoby Brissett did finally show up to camp. What a messed up situation they got going on in the desert. So,
but hey, they drafted Jeremiah Love, so they have a good run game. Except if everybody knows that the only thing you can do is run, guess what you do? You stack the box, and I don't care how good Love is, they're going to struggle.
And I don't even think their offensive line is good enough to maintain that solid of a run game. Just don't forget that Jeremiah Love is a ridiculous threat in the pass game as well.
Oh, 100%.
And, between him and Marvin Harrison, like, there isn't that much they have to do. And here we are talking about the Cardinals. There isn't that much.
Our best efforts not to.
It's crazy because they basically just have to be like a little bit competent and they have some interesting pieces, especially on offense. But like, you want to be competent and you're hiring Nathaniel Hackett. Like, I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. That's not what you do. Nathaniel Hackett will always be the 33rd best offensive coordinator in the NFL anytime he is the offensive coordinator in the NFL.
Truer words have never been spoken. All right, Ari, let's move on over to our fan favorite, Guess That Number. Woo! So, as you guys know, we go ahead and like to choose numbers. Each one of us does not know. We know the number that we picked. Ari is a copycat, so he chose number 99 after I chose number 99 last week. And since I had gone with the highest number possible in the NFL last week with number 99, I went with 0, which, by the way, there is a certain limit on who this could be, just given the fact that the number 0 was not even allowed to be worn in the NFL up until just a few years ago. So, Ari, would you like to go first with your number 99, or should I go first with my 0?
Be my guest, Ari. You can start us off here.
Okay. All right. So, again, not that many people, only because you've only been allowed to wear the number 0 in the NFL since 2023. I wanted to go with somebody who would be a little bit more difficult for you to figure out. So before I start giving hints, any clue who my player is?
Keon Coleman.
God damn it.
Are you serious? No way. No way. That is wild.
I wanted to go with the least, like the worst of the crop, because Raekwon Smith, Brian Burns, who would be the obvious one because he plays for the Giants, Christian Gonzalez, Jahmyr Gibbs, or Calvin Ridley. I felt like I'll go with Keon Coleman because he's really the worst of the bunch. And there's some funny, hints I could have given. If you had asked me for a hint, I would have been like, he was excited to find out during his opening press conference that the snacks there were free and he could take as much as he likes. True story. But you went ahead and got it ahead of time. So nicely done, Ari. Yes, of the people who wear 0, it was indeed Keon Coleman. Nicely done.
So there you go. So it's just, it's such a small pool of guys. And I was wondering if you were going to do something really obscure like Braylon Allen. He's the Jets obscures here. So I was just like, out of the, guys who are slightly less noteworthy anyways. So Keon Coleman, that's a good one. But there's such a small pool. It's just such a hard number to get. So I'm glad that after last week, I almost didn't get Jason Taylor, that this week I immediately got Keon Coleman. Shows you where my head is at. So
nicely done, Ari.
Thank you. With that being said, I want to, number 99. He's not in the NFL currently. Do you want to guess?
Well, if I had to go with my first guess, and it's just because they were both so legendary to wear it, or even I would say all three were so legendary to wear it, would be either Aaron Donald, J.J. Watt, or Warren Sapp. Those would have to be my top 3 guesses just off the bat of who it would be. If I had to guess of the 3, I would go with Warren Sapp just because he is most long retired out of the 3 of those guys.
So it's no one that is legendary or frankly that close to that status. I will give you my first hint. Okay. He was a 4th round pick in the 2005 draft to the Dallas Cowboys.
No, DeMarcus Ware? No.
No, Ware didn't wear number 99. He was on that team with this player.
Number 99. That's a good question. Number 99 played with DeMarcus Ware.
Yes, he at the same time. They were on the Cowboys the same time. Let me know if and when.
Oh, wait a minute. Did he also play for the Giants, this player?
There we go. My second hint was going to be
Chris Canty, baby.
There we go. I knew you were going to get it. And for whatever reason, when you said 99 last week, I had I just had Chris Canty's crazy ass face mask pictured in my head, and I just couldn't get over that, and it was just blocking me from thinking about anything else beside for his face mask. So I'm like, next week, you know what I'm gonna do? Chris Canty. There you go, Ari. My second clue is gonna be he played for both the Giants and John Harbaugh, so I was excited about that clue.
Nicely done. Okay, all right, Ari. Select the number for next week.
I got number 76.
Okay, and I am going to go with number 69.
Nice. Nice. I was about to pick 69. I'm just telling you, because Jared Allen was really in my mind. So if this is Jared Allen, it's a time to pick another number.
No, not per se. I haven't per se locked in on who it's going to be, but
awesome.
69. All right, and you said 70.
76. It's a specific player. I always pick the player first, and I'm definitely trying to do like good players from like our time as football fans, but may have not have, they're the kind of guys that when we were watching, they're like, this guy's a really good football player. And then 10 years later, everyone forgets about him. So those are kind of the guys that I want to be using.
All right. Excellent. All right. And with that wraps up another edition of RE Squared. Please go ahead, guys. Subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Instagram. Leave us a 5-star review on all your favorite podcast platforms. Share it, like it, tell your friends about it. Keep giving us your feedback. It's what makes this even more fun. And Ari, any closing words before we say goodbye?
I love your throwback jersey, and I love that you're bringing on, all of this stuff every week now. It rocks.
My boy Eli.
It rocks, and I got to obviously step up my game in the thread business as well. So there we go.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I understand why you would not proudly want to wear Jets gear. I get it. I understand why you would be ashamed to don a Jets jersey, but I'm super pumped, as our listeners know, about the upcoming season for the Giants. And therefore, I will proudly wear my throwback Giants gear each and every week. So, on that note, everyone, peace. We out.